Welcome to episode 335 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. In a moment, I'm joined by Cédric Hervet. He's the co-founder and chief product officer at Kardinal. And we're going to talk about out-of-home delivery. We're going to talk about finding the best locations for PUDOs and lockers in terms of things like profitability and customer coverage. And we're going to talk about some new technology that Kardinal has as well with regard to helping delivery companies make the most of out-of-home delivery networks. So, in this episode, sponsored by Kardinal, we'll be talking about all this and a whole lot more. So, coming up in just a moment, Cédric Hervet, co-founder and chief product officer at Kardinal. Joining me on the line is Cédric Hervet. He's a co-founder and chief product officer at Kardinal. Cédric, today we're going to be talking about out-of-home delivery. Before we get stuck into the guts of this, let's just set out the scene here, though. Why is it that delivery companies are looking at out-of-home delivery?
Out-of-home delivery has been developed a lot in the recent years. We've seen many companies using this new type of delivery and increasingly using it. I have some numbers. I think we have 39% of European e-shoppers that now receive deliveries outside their homes, and it's a 4% increase since 2019. So it's something that is progressing in customer usage, and it's also, but it needs a network. It needs something to support this new service, right? And so, what we've seen is that, for example, at DHL or Geopost, they both have like 100,000 out-of-home delivery points in their network to support their deliveries. So why is it interesting, really? The main change for the parcel delivery industry has been the rise of e-commerce. We all know that. And so it means that basically you have more people engaging in B2C deliveries. And so B2C delivery is slightly different from the usual B2B you had before, because there are points that are more complex to deliver because people are not always there. So, these no-show problems, the fact that you come back to the depot with some parcel that you could not successfully deliver is an issue. And the other thing is there are naturally stops where you deliver less parcels than when you go to a B2B stop. Statistically, it's shown for everyone. So basically, you are moving around to deliver less parcels, and if the rate of success is lower than with B2B. And so out-of-home delivery is a great solution to that, because the idea is to say, okay, there is no question of no-show with out-of-home delivery because it's always available, so you can always deliver what you have. And the other good thing is that it increases stop density a lot. So instead of visiting 10 stops, delivering 1 or 2 parcels each, you visit 1 stop and you deliver everything in 1 stop. So that's the kind of things you want to achieve. However, I might sound like B2C was a bad news for this business. Well, it was actually really great news. It's just that it comes with some challenges, operational challenges mostly. The fact that, for example, because point with density is also true with B2C deliveries, right? The more people you have to deliver on a given area, the more density you have, and so the more profitable you are, the cost per delivery decreases, right? But it's just that having some PUDOs along the way, some out-of-home points like that, it increases the density even more. Right, you travel less kilometer to deliver everyone. So this kind of thing is really interesting, and so it kind of solves those two challenges: the fact that people are always delivered, and sometimes it's better for people to be delivered on a out-of-home delivery point instead of trying to synchronize with the driver. And sometimes it's difficult, and we've all experienced bad delivery experience because of this, right? We are not always available at the right time, so it solves a lot of pain points. Now, having said that, and as always in this industry, once you found a solution, you need to deploy it and to operate it, and that's where new challenges comes up.
Now, when we're talking about out-of-home delivery, of course, we're talking about PUDO points, so pick-up, drop-off points, or it might be that you're dropping off parcels at a retailer, or it might even be that you're dropping off parcels at a parcel locker. And it's all considered out-of-home delivery. But for what we've just been talking about, though, that's a fairly carrier-centric way of looking at it. If we want to make it a success, we also have to take the customer view of it, don't we? So how can you make out-of-home delivery a success? What are some of the key considerations that delivery companies need to bear in mind when they're either setting up the out-of-home delivery network or how they're servicing it and all those sorts of things? So how can we make it a success?
Well, like you said, it's very important to consider the end customer expectations regarding that. It has to be simple. Like always with the end customer, they want it to be simple. And in many ways, out-of-home delivery can be simpler than being delivered home because, as I said, you need to sync with the driver. Sometimes you miss the call. It's a lot of stress actually for people. Since COVID, people are working home, but they're always in meetings or doing, it's not because you're home that you're available, right? So somehow it's kind of stressful to know that someone will come and ring, and you need to be available in the minute, or otherwise you will leave with your parcel. So actually, it brings a lot of simplicity, and the experience is good. But the counterpart of that, especially when you're relying on parcel shops, is that you need to trust your partners in this network, and that's where. And I'm assuming everyone has had this kind of bad experiences where, those tiny shops that have for which the parcel, the out of home delivery represents a non-negligible income of revenue. Sometimes they do only that, but then the people operating this small business, they are not as professional as this kind of business requires, right? So the opening hours are not matched. So sometimes you come in and there's no one. Sometimes they lose parcels and everything. So yeah, there is a kind of, it's not because you have a place to receive parcel that they will be well received, that they will be well handled to the end customer, and sometimes the experience can be bad in that way. So this is why it's difficult, and there are a lot of, I think, competition trying to get and retain those parcel shops within the network. So this is the challenge regarding the end customer. It must remain simple, and I've seen some experimentations. I think it's probably Geopost that they want to try to offer a service where up to I think it's 30 minutes or 1 hour just before you were supposed to be delivered by a driver, they want to offer the opportunity for the end customer to be delivered, to pick the out-of-home delivery option even half an hour before being delivered, because I don't know, they have like a meeting that just started, or their kid is having a meltdown, whatever. So this kind of option is really good, and it will really drive, I think, the usage of this. And many people are, I think there were some studies, some people, let me find the number again. I think we have 47% of Europeans stating that their experience would be improved if they had more delivery options like the parcel lockers and things like that. And you have people that are always picking the out-of-home delivery options, which means that it really answers a critical need for the end customers. So that's for the end customer part. Now from the transportation company's part, well, to make it a success, well, it requires an even deeper, I would say, connection to the out-of-home delivery points. So technically, you need to know where your parcels are. When you are relying on parcel shops, you need to be sure that the person in charge of actually handling the parcels in this parcel shop is well trained, knows how to do it. She doesn't make mistakes. And if you have to track down a parcel at some point, you need to have ways to interact with this person. And so sometimes it can be quite a challenge because they are not salarymen, they're just partners. And we all know that it's more difficult to retrieve information when your parcel is out there in nature. For parcel lockers, you also have some issues regarding using parcel lockers as on one hand, out-of-home delivery options, but we also have to mention that parcel lockers are very interesting for collection. For people that want to send parcels. We've all witnessed the rise of services like Vinted, or those second-hand things where people are just sending parcel to each other. So the parcel locker is a great way to collect, and but it really needs to be very, very accurate on the place left you have in each locker. Basically, you need to know if there is room for any new parcel in this locker. Otherwise, either the people just dropping off a thing to send, if she has no room to do it, well, it's a fail, and that's the same for the delivery. So yeah, it requires a very mature IT system to actually handle this in the right way, so that the experience is bliss for everyone.
What we're talking about here is quality of service. As you were just saying, making sure that there are sellers available in the parcel locker, managing the capacity of the parcel locker, making sure that the staff at the PUDO or the parcel shop, whatever you like to call it, are trained properly, making sure they know how to store and retrieve the parcels. So these are all the human elements of it as well, the human aspect of out-of-home delivery. So when we talk then about how a delivery company builds out this out-of-home delivery network, I mean, what would you say are some of the main challenges that delivery companies face when it comes to building effective out-of-home delivery networks?
Yeah. So the main thing is that you cannot put, PUDOs or lockers at random on the territory, because first, you do not have, especially for parcel shops, you do not have places available anywhere. So you need to adapt to what's actually available to build a coherent network. So what we've seen is that we have several approaches. We have people starting from nothing, so they just want to integrate some networks, and you've got people already operating such networks. I'm thinking about, in France we have Point Relais, you have Sweetbox, Instabox, Quadient, these kind of companies. They offer like hands-on out-of-home networks that you can connect to. So this is a great way to start. We have people that are just integrating and buying this kind of out-of-home networks into their own system, but then they need to rationalize, and you have tricky questions to answer on whether I should keep or not a given point. And so all those questions in the end comes to the very simple notion of coverage, right? You have a network and you want it to cover the best it can the territory. So and it might seem simple in appearance, and what we've been working on at Cardinal is really trying to find the right model to tackle this issue, because the most simple model you can start with is, okay, let's consider I have PUDO points on the territory. They will have a coverage, and you can define that coverage very easily in terms of how far away people are from this out-of-home PUDO. And you have many ways to compute that. So it's either a distance in kilometers, it's either the 15 minutes ISO line by bike around and you can combine many criteria like this. And even just defining what's being covered means is really different from an urban area where everyone is doing everything by foot compared to rural areas where everyone is ready to take their car to drive to the next town and pick up their parcel. So really there are challenges around that. Having the right definition of what being covered means, it doesn't take long to understand that it's not an easy definition to give. And you need historical data to understand that. You need to look at historical data to understand how people that are in a range of a PUDO, what is the probability for them, to require this kind of service when they know it exists, this kind of thing, to end up having a exploitable definition, I would say, that you can then generalize. Now, having said that, the second thing you need to do is, do you define coverage? Is it just in percentage of the territory that is actually covered? Well, it doesn't really make sense because the density of people living in areas is not the same. So you might want to consider coverage as the amount of people that are actually covered, always relating to the definition that is already tricky to establish. The number of people that are actually covered in the area, but then you can also refine that and consider the percentage of people that could be interested in such a service that are actually covered, because you can have PUDOs in areas where actually no one cares about having PUDOs because they want to be delivered home because of whatever consumption patterns they have, and it's not homogeneous. So the further you dig into the data, the further you dig into the actual practices of end customers, you realize that not everyone wants PUDOs in the same way. And so defining coverage is the first and most challenging things, because whatever optimization algorithm you put at the end of this, and this is what we do at Cardinal also, you first need to have a correct definition of what being efficiently covered means. Right, and then once you have this definition, you can work on based on a set of PUDO locations you have, or you potentially could buy. What is the optimal subset you want to use to optimize the density, optimize your delivery cost, and everything? And that's the second stage. But first, this definition is really tricky to have, and we are currently working with several parcel delivery companies, and they're all at different stage of advancement and maturity regarding this definition, but they're all saying that it's a tricky question.
Let's then talk about optimizing the process. because this is what we're talking about here, is the
Yeah.
process. And you've mentioned that you need to understand the data and definitions and things like this. So how can a delivery company optimize the process for building an out-of-home delivery network?
Well, you have two dimensions to consider. You have the spatial dimension, so where to put things, and you have the temporal, the timing at which you can integrate that in the network. And timing is more, I think, a constraint because it's really depending on your capacity to integrate more and more PUDO stops into your network. So it all comes down to your IT capacity regarding this. I think having the right, PDAs to give to parcel shops owner, the training you are capable of, so the onboarding capacity you have. So this just it sizes the timing and the frequency of integration you can have into your network. For the special one, well, then you need to rely, and at least that's our proposition to the market. We suggest you could do this with algorithmic support. The PUDO location relates to an old mathematical problem which is called facility location. So it's really related to this. The idea is to have on the territory points that you can't or activate or not. Each point has somehow a cost, right? And you want to optimize the coverage at minimum cost, or the other way around. But you get the idea. So it's a difficult problem of mathematics. Actually, it falls into these problems for which no simple algorithm exists, and so you need to rely on very advanced mathematical techniques to actually solve this efficiently. So that's what we picked these old mathematical problems and we applied it to the out-of-home delivery network optimization. And so the idea is to consider many things into this algorithm. Of course, you want to optimize the coverage, you want to optimize your costs, but not really the cost of your networks, because for parcel shops owner, you are just paying them for each parcel. So a location in itself does not cost anything if you never use it, but it costs something in terms of delivery cost, because someone has to drive there, right? So it's a balance you need to find between having a lot of PUDOs covering very efficiently a territory, but if you have too much what I would call cannibalization, right? The fact that you have several PUDOs covering the same area, and so they are always half empty. Well, it's not really efficient because you are delivering 2 points instead of one. And for most people, having only one PUDO would be more enough for most end customers, I mean. So that's the tricky thing you need to optimize. And so those algorithms are really doing all that. They can also consider a very important thing, especially for lockers, the fact that depending on clients, the kind of things they ordered, and because, for example, you do not leave your brand new iPhone. I mean, the main tendency is not to leave in more than a few hours in the out of home point, because you want it and you want to secure it for you very, very fast, compared to, I don't know, a screwdriver you ordered on Amazon, and you don't care if you pick it in a few days. This kind of thing. So the time spent in the out of home point is very important to consider when you are sizing the capacities of your network. And sometimes, even if you have two out of home points covering the same area, apparently cannibalizing each other, well, the patterns locally could be that parcels are left a long time in out of home points, so you need to have to kind of double the capacity you have locally. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but there are a lot of local constraints to consider, and this is why the optimization problem gets very tricky very fast. And this is exactly why you need an algorithm, actually.
And you mentioned there it's an advanced mathematical problem, and it does sound like it's a problem to solve, though. But as I've said so many times recently, what do we do in this industry is we solve problems, and these are fascinating problems to solve. And all those things you've just mentioned, things like trying to anticipate the parcel hold time at the, I nearly said the post office, it could be a post office or the retail point or the parcel locker. Those sorts of things are fascinating to try to uncover. But it also sort of means that our old method of just chucking everything in an Excel spreadsheet might not be enough. So, Cédric, if you want to find out more about the tool that Kardinal has developed, how should they get in contact?
Well, first, we are hosting a webinar in a few days. I think it's on the 20th of February on this topic. So the audience is very welcome to this webinar, I think, and maybe we could share the link when we'll display this. And otherwise, well, we can be contacted on our website or with my email that you can also share, of course, if they want to get in touch and if we want to discuss this further here.
I'll put a link on the episode page on thepostalhub.com to the Kardinal webinar that Cédric just mentioned, which is on the 20th of February off the top of my head, which will be on this very topic, as Cédric mentioned. I'll also put a link to the Kardinal website and details on how you can get in contact with Kardinal to find out more about their tools to help you develop and optimize out-of-home delivery networks. Cédric Hervet, co-founder and chief product officer at Kardinal. Thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Next time on the Postal Hub podcast, I'm joined by Carmen Correo, Market Research Director at Geopost, to talk about Geopost's recently released e-shopper barometer, the 2023 edition, focusing on, I don't need to tell you about it. You'll find all about it next week when you listen to the podcast, won't you? What else can I share with you now in the few seconds that we have remaining in this episode? Sign up for my newsletter. Go to thepostalhub.com, sign up for newsletters there. Subscribe to the podcast in something like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, whatever tickles your fancy. Follow the Postal Hub podcast on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn if you like. It's nice. And if you want to email me about anything at all, I'm really giving people a big incentive to follow me on LinkedIn, aren't I? If you want to email me about anything at all, my email address is ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.